This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like.
All right, good morning to a Thursday morning on NewDay. That's the best show you can have around the world on a morning like this.
It certainly is.
Definitely.
And if you are with two ladies, you'll get a lot of goodies because they're always good. They're very good. Amma and Solis.
Yeah, good morning to you. It's March 22nd. Of course, it's a good day to be alive because you're just about seeing the end of March. Hopefully, God will sustain you to see 31st.
He's always happy when it gets to the end of the month because her account get padded up.
Oh, not only that. I mean, just the fact that you've lived another month successfully is a blessing. And then you hope and pray that it will translate up until December. So certainly the fact that you can hear us, you can see us, you can move your body means that God has given you another day to go out there and be great and to help make Ghana a better country. But I hope you all had a good night, though.
Definitely, I did have a very, very good night. It was quite a relaxing night for me. Bright, don't say anything.
No, I hope it was a good night.
But right from Monday, I think the equator has been shifted such that now we have equal morning, nights and days. So then the days may seem shorter than we had before, but really it's about the same. It's just that the days, the days are going to be equal for both sides.
So you mean people won't oversleep?
Yeah, hopefully people won't. Yeah.
Well, that's if the stress level is
well controlled. If you're too stressed, then maybe you might oversleep.
Right. So if you had a good night, of course, welcome to the center of the world, Accra, Ghana. This is NewDay, and from now till 9 a.m. Our job is to excite you. That's what we do every day. We're wrapping up the week. It's almost getting to an end. And mine is starting this morning. I don't know about you.
Mine has also started.
Oh, okay. You have joined the club. Welcome to the club. So
I am
Thursday,
fully in support of that.
Yes. Thursday weekenders, we are starting this today. And this week, the mountains have a lot of stuff. There are funerals, there are outdoorings, there are parties. So this week is on the mountains. Getting ready to fly to Jekiti next week. And of course, the family of Mr. Bosompe will be there on the mountain this weekend to commiserate with you on the loss of your son. And so, a wonderful weekend for me, and I'm starting today. I don't know, Solis said he... Yes, Bonnie is also
scheduled for this weekend.
So
I mean the son of the Bosompens.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just going to be one of those weekends. Of course, there are going to be weddings.
Of course.
Yeah.
Naming ceremonies.
And outdoorings.
Outdoorings as well.
Others are coming.
I can't believe it's 81 days since the year started. 81 already. 81.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But you said some are going and some are coming. At least it helps balance the population, and hopefully the 29 that we've hit will not increase anymore. But Solis, I guess you have all the... No, but I mean, it will. It's supposed to increase, but the rate will reduce because it's supposed, per the estimates, it's supposed to be 2.5 a year. But we seem to be, going a bit faster. So hopefully it will slow down. Maybe we'll get to about 1 or 1.5. Well, if it's 1, I hear you go extinct. So hopefully not below 1.
Did you do what I do every morning today?
What do you do? Share with us.
Anytime I get up at about 3 o'clock, the first thing is to take water.
Okay.
And today is World Water Day.
It is. And so
usually, yes, I do what I have always been doing. Take some water.
Take a lot of water today.
And then begin to think about those who do not have water and are struggling to get water, and the fact that it's a real problem for this part of the world. Water is a real challenge for this.
It's quite unfortunate that in the 21st century, in 2018, people still have to go through the very, I mean, that's the most basic necessity. That we have to face those problems. But hopefully, with time, when people do the needful, we won't be facing these kinds of issues. But we'll be talking about more other issues in the news this morning. We're looking at business. We'll also take a look at the health and the education sector as well, all coming up in morning news. All right, let's start off with this particular story. And President Akufo-Addo has signed 3 legal instruments to promote trade across the continent at the extraordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. The agreements are expected to make the continent the largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization.
The 3 legal instruments, namely The agreement establishing the Continental Free Trade Area, the Protocol on Free Movement of Persons, and the Kigali Declaration are expected to bring the Continent Free Trade Area initiative to reality. The agreement, which was reached at the extraordinary session of the African Union in Kigali, Rwanda, will now ensure the expansion of intra-Africa trade through better harmonization and coordination of trade liberalization and facilitation regimes, an instrument across the continent. The agreement will also pave way for the creation of a single continental market for goods and services with free movement of businesses and investment, while enhancing the acceleration of the establishment of a continental customs union. With Africa's population set to reach some 2 billion people in 20 years, an African common market presents immense opportunities to bring prosperity to the continent through hard work, entrepreneurship, and creativity.
All right, so don't forget that we're live on DSTV channel 279. You can also get interactive with us via our various social media platforms. Let's go on to the next story. And the minority in Parliament is blaming government for UniBank's insolvency. Minority spokesperson on finance, Kcl Atoforsen, says government is gradually ceding the financial sector to foreigners, which he says should be condemned.
Kcl Atoforsen said it is unacceptable for government to allow the largest indigenous bank to collapse. He regretted UT and Capital banks collapsed under the watch of this same government.
Recently, we were told that UT Bank and Capital Bank that collapse costed the taxpayer an amount of 2 billion Ghana cedis. Look, UniBank is bigger than UT and Capital Bank put together, or it's about the same size. So if that will cost us 2 billion cedis, then this one is also going to cost us 2 billion cedis. The two put together, the taxpayer, you and I, we are going to spend 4 billion Ghana cedis, 2% of GDP, in servicing this debt. And the government is supervising this bank to collapse.
He was worried the financial sector was being ceded to foreigners.
I'm aware of another bank that is in a serious problem than this. Today, nobody can tell me that jobs will not be lost. Another bank will take over UniBank, market on the wall in the next 6 months, even before then. It cannot be true that within 6 months they will turn around this bank. If they claim that the capital adequacy ratio has gone to -24, and they are saying that technically insolvent, how can they do it in 24 months, in 6 months? If it can be done in 6 months, they've been in this administration for how many months? This is their 15th month in office. Are they telling us they can't save a bank? There's a government that proud themselves of saying that they are basically business friendly and all of that.
But Chairman of the Finance Committee, Dr. Mark Esibe-Yeboah, defended the Bank of Ghana is doing a lot for the indigenous banks, adding the bank acted appropriately.
Since 2016, August 2016, the Bank of Ghana realized that UniBank was in trouble. In the case of UT Bank and Capital Bank, the Bank of Ghana could have liquidated those banks, but they said that, oh, GCB should take over in a purchase and assumption offer. So the Bank of Ghana had injected about 1.6 billion into UT and Capital. This is our money.
He said the issue of UniBank could be as a result of its numerous subsidiaries.
Corporate management issues, okay? It is for my father, so I am the managing director and I'm loaning out to, they venture into things. The Bank of Ghana should have moved in a long time ago, okay? They should have moved in a long time ago, but you see, if they go along this path, every month another bank will go.
He was hopeful the bank will be revived in 6 months.
Now, the minority in Parliament says the document on the Security Cooperation Agreement between Ghana and the United States, which was laid in Parliament Tuesday, has not been signed and is procedurally flawed. A member of the Constitutional and Legal Committee of Parliament, Nelson Dafiamepo, is asking government to withdraw the document.
On Tuesday, the Defense Minister laid a paper in Parliament on Security Cooperation Agreement between Ghana and the United States of America. The agreement was referred to the Constitutional and Legal as well as Defense and Interior Committees. On Wednesday, when the committee met with the Minister of Defense and Interior, it came to light that the memo accompanying the memoranda had not been signed. A member of the Constitutional and Legal Committee, Nelson Dafiamakpo, said the procedure by the executive is flawed.
The document they have brought to Parliament is neither an agreement, nor is it a bill. So we are asking the government to do the appropriate thing. They should take back the memorandum, execute it, and bring it to Parliament for our ratification. They want to use the backdoor process to leave the agreement for Parliament to review, so that if there's a problem tomorrow, then Parliament will be blamed. Me, Roxy Nelson, I'm a lawyer, I'm worth my salt. It ought not to be accepted. Parliament is being hoodwinked. Nobody realized and raised the fundamental issue yesterday on the floor.
He says the minority will not be part of it if government does not withdraw the paper.
The legislature doesn't sign agreements. We don't participate in negotiating agreements. What they are doing, they are asking us to negotiate, to be part of the negotiation. It is not our role.
The South Dying MP said the security ministers at the committee meeting were struggling to justify the procedure used, but they will insist on the appropriate procedure.
And now schools in Ahia remain closed 3 days after a violent clash between two youth groups in the area. Also, commercial activity is yet to resume fully despite the presence of the police. This is a report by Ibrahim Abubakar.
One person was killed and several others sustained cutlass wounds on Monday when two youth groups in Ahia clashed. The violent clash led to a temporary closure of schools and halted commercial activities in the area. Security has also been beefed to ensure law and order. Despite the presence of the security, business activities are yet to pick up when the news team visited the area Wednesday morning. Few stores had been opened whilst the rest remained closed. Academic work in both private and public schools are yet to resume. Municipal Chief Executive of Kwabre East, Nana Osei Esibebunsu, is hopeful effective academic work will resume tomorrow.
We've identified a place which is being used as the house of the criminals. So we resolved that we cut down the trees over the whole place so that they don't have any other place to hide.
The Kwabre East Municipal Security Council engaged with community leaders to deliberate on the way forward in bringing lasting peace to the area. The council has tasked residents to expose all the criminals in the area for the law to deal with them.
Now, regarding issues of international relations, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Gloria Kufuor, says Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are working assiduously to bring into effect the judgment of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, ITLAS. Now, she added Ghana would also address similar disagreements over boundaries with Benin and Togo through negotiations, which she says is cost-effective.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice made this known when executives of the Ghana Energy Awards presented an honorary award to her in recognition of her immense contribution to the energy sector. The team, led by the former chairman of the Energy Commission, Dr. Kwame Ampofo, said the team she put across for the ITLO's arbitration is commendable. He urged the AG to help in sealing the leakages in the oil sector.
The ruling that your outfit had pursued so persistently since 2014, and the collaboration you had with your predecessor, we thought that it is something phenomenal that has happened to the Ghana energy sector and that it needs to be recognized.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice noted the arbitration process was a learning curve, which has come to reinforce the peaceful relationship that existed between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire.
As I speak now, the two countries are collaborating and have put together their respective teams that will sit together and give effect. There are maps to be drawn. The decision itself is yet to be translated onto paper. We had submitted an application to the UN on the continental shelf, and although it was being looked on favorably, it had to be stayed pending the outcome of that decision.
She hinted Ghana will engage Togo and Benin to settle a similar boundary dispute.
We think that we must put litigation behind us. We think that the first option should be negotiation. And therefore, the other countries with whom we share boundaries, such as Benin and Togo, we will engage and resolve the matter amicably.
Former Attorney General and Minister for Justice Marietta Brua-Piopon in 2014 initiated an arbitration with Côte d'Ivoire over the disputed oil-rich Sea-100 territory after over-decade talks for amicable settlement failed. The Special Chamber of the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea, ITLOS, in September 2017 ruled in favor of Ghana in the 3-year-long maritime dispute.
Now, all 14 accused persons facing trial before an Accra High Court over the murder of Major Maxwell Mahama have pleaded not guilty to the charge of abetment of crime, conspiracy to commit murder, and murder. The court took the pleas of the accused persons after it ensured they all had legal representation.
The assemblyman for the area, William Barr, was the only person amongst the 14 to be charged with abetment of crime. The remaining 13 are facing charges of conspiracy to commit crime, namely murder, and 9 have additional charge of murder. The court could not proceed beyond taking their pleas after a struggle to put a jury in place. A 7-member panel must be selected from a number more than 7 to hear the case, but only 7 people were present to form the jury. The High Court, presided over by a Court of Appeal judge with additional responsibilities, Justice Mariama Owusu, urged officials from the Judicial Service to assist the court shore up the numbers. The case, which has been adjourned twice, was due to the inability of some of the accused persons to get legal representation. However, all 14 now have lawyers after the court appointed Godwin Jemfi to join defense lawyers George Benashaw, Augustine Jemfi, Augustine Obuo, and Seidu Nasigri. Lawyer Nashiru Yusuf is holding a watching brief for the family of the late soldier, while Chief State Attorney Evelyn Kilson is leading prosecution. Hearing of the case continues on April 12.
Now, the Kulin Bridge is to be closed by the Ghana Highway Authority for a month for repair works. The closure of the bridge will affect the Pusiga District Assembly's revenue as well as local and international trade. A report by Tanko Mohammed Rabiu.
The 57 meters Kulin Bridge was constructed about 3 decades ago. In 2007, the bridge collapsed after a downpour, forcing the then government to immediately repair it. Some 6 years later, the bridge began to deteriorate again, forcing the government to restrict its use to lightweight vehicles. It was, however, repaired later to enable heavy-duty vehicles ply it. The Highways Authority is seeking to maintain and repair worn-out portions of the bridge to prevent it from collapse. Closing the bridge will have an adverse economic effect on revenue generation by the Pusiga District Assembly because a lot of revenues are generated from there.
Even though it will affect a lot of the activity in the community and beyond, but we are happy that the decision has taken this dry season, because if it happened in the rainy season, it will affect a lot. So we are very grateful to the government.
The District Chief Executive for Pusiga, Zubairu Abdullahi, called on residents and travelers to cooperate with officials at the Ghana Highways Authority to have the bridge fixed. Alternative routes are available from Boku Mongnori into Burkina Faso and other designated areas in the region.
Well, that's all for the news this morning. We've been streaming worldwide on the internet at 3news.com with live updates on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. We've also been live on DSTV channel 279. My name is Solis Rose Corte. New Day continues after this. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Let's do newspaper headlines now. We'll start off with the Daily Statement. It says, President is telling us time to make Africa integration real. Also, NDC politics with UniBank is myopic. That's coming from Professor Korte. He's the head of economics department at the University of Ghana. Then also, government transparent with U.S. military deal. That's coming from the defense minister of Ghana. Well, these two issues don't seem to be going off the waves.
I doubt they would go away anytime soon, but I trust the Bank of Ghana with all the experts who are speaking, you know, to do a clean job on this particular one. The concerns raised, however, about how much we're going to spend to service the debt is shocking and worrying indeed, and I hope that we don't get to that point.
But you know, the politicking surrounding this UniBank issue, I would want us to actually sit down and look at the real issues, because UniBank is not the only bank that is going to, you know, suffer a kind of economic fate as it has. There are many that are lined up to, like,
in fact, about 13 or so that the Bank of Ghana
because
says.
oftentimes when they, you know, go through their books, they do mention those who are struggling. And so I would want us to look at it, you know, collectively, as to how it will affect the other banks and how they can also start sitting up before we notice that they're also going into negative CARs and we're still pumping money to try and keep them afloat.
Look,
for me, it's not about NDC or NPP, it's about governance, because it's our money, taxpayers' monies, that go to service these debts. And there are real issues. Let's look at what UniBank did to lead them this way, so that we correct those issues before it happens to the
point,
other banks.
and I will say it again, it's even trickled down to younger people who want to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
The collaborative effort is not there. Everybody wants to be independent, even when they see that they are not. I mean, I know people who have solid ideas, but they don't have the money to push the ideas. There are others who also have money, but they don't have the ideas. It will be difficult for the two to come together. You know why? Because they always want to be known as the sole proprietor.
To represent a particular brand,
exactly. And that may be the kind of things that the bank is doing. Because, look, all the leave and license that the Bank of Ghana gives these banks is to ensure that, they have a conversation among themselves and they know who can collaborate with who, so that they can even merge and have one stronger brand. But it's not, it doesn't seem like it's forthcoming. And so now the Bank of Ghana may be tempted to take over and deal with the issues. And you know, this happened in the Capital Bank UT, issue. And then at that time, we got hints that there were about 13 or so of them that had, this distress situation. Now it's UniBank. We don't know who is coming up next. But if I were an owner of a bank and I knew that my CR isn't looking too good, I'd look for somebody who has potential and merge with the person. How difficult is that? Is that rocket science?
It's not.
I think that the central bank has a role to play. I mean, no matter what has happened, Dr. Addison and his men or women cannot absolve themselves of blame. I mean, the key question is, why have they sat down till now? Okay, and so we might be blaming UniBank, we might be blaming those who were running the affairs of the bank. But the central bank simply cannot say that, well, the bank failed to do what it was supposed to do, and so we decided to appoint new administrators.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, because if that is the case, then what is the regulator doing?
Exactly.
You see, the BNFC has a story suggesting that the central bank says our job is not done, which means that there are a lot more of these banks that are in distress. Why do we have to wait till we get to this point and then either we do a takeover or we appoint a new administrator? And I am amazed at what the central bank says it wants to do. You say UniBank is insolvent.
Okay.
So you appoint a new administrator who is to go in and in 6 months
change their fortunes.
Yes, if to put it that way. How can that be done? Because me, if I am a customer of UniBank, the very day the announcement came, I withdraw my saving, my deposits. And I do not think any businessman in his right mind will go and deposit money in UniBank once this announcement is made.
Yeah.
So how are you going to turn around the fortunes?
That's what the Bank of Ghana advises against. In fact, yesterday it took, because the promise was that they were going to activate their services by 12 p.m. Okay, and some didn't get that notice, so they went there. They sat there till after 12:15 or so when the bank started dispensing cash and running the service for them. I agree with Bright, and yesterday we mentioned that point here, that every day, every single day, weekly, monthly, the banks send a report to the regulator, which is the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana itself has auditors who will work with the auditors, internal auditors of the various banks. If the Bank of Ghana's argument is that the banks were cooking figures for them, at what point did they realize that the figures were cooked? Yeah. And at what point did they know that they had to move in? So it's been 1 year. It means that the Bank of Ghana itself has not been fair to us who deposit at these banks.
That's the point.
Because it is my hard-earned money put in there in sure hope of interest and other facilities that may be able to come to me. Now you're telling me that because of A, B, C, and D, is it the negligence of duty? What is it?
That's the point. I mean, that's the question you raised. But I'm happy that in Mr. Addison's statement,
Dr.
Addison's statement, he does mention the fact that there has been weak supervision from their part.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that he's not only saying it to put blame on the previous administration, but also to realize that they do have some, crippling issues and will work towards it. Because, Johnny, in the time when he took over, at least it's been more than 6 months. Right. So even in that space of time, your team could have identified these issues and made sure you worked with it. We're not saying we're not happy with what
it takes 6 months for KPMG to turn things around. In 6 months, you see, something could have been done.
But listening to economists, it doesn't even seem real that KPMG will be able to do this in the 6 months. And I agree with them, because Bank of Ghana as a regulator and also as a supervisor, and having been in the industry for this long, you know the key players that determine how these banks work.
Right.
And if you couldn't do it in a space of 2 years, from 2015 up till now, what do you expect KPMG to do in those 6 months?
Dr. Addison's statement that this thing didn't start today, and that he came in 2017, and that before he came in, there was weak supervision. I think that he's not addressing the issues.
Right.
Look, how many people at the Bank of Ghana came with Dr. Addison in 2017? The weak supervision he is talking about, the people who supervised this, have they left the bank?
No, they haven't. They're still
there.
there.
So if you come and tell me that this didn't start today, I came in 2017, it was my people who had left. If the former governor had left, if the former second deputy governor had left, are those who they work with, are they not there?
They're still there.
Are they not those who supervised, who did this? What is going to happen to them?
Unless he's saying they're equally ineffective.
Look, Obama...
No. Unless they're just there to occupy positions. Because that's what it means.
But what I'm saying...
We accept that he was not there. He came in 2017. But the new one, Madame Elsie Awaji, also just got in a few months and weeks ago. Fine. What about those who were there, the other technocrats who have supervised this till now?
Right.
What happens to them? Look, so his excuse that I am not there, I came in 2017, this because it doesn't wash.
Look, right.
If he takes punitive actions against those who did what we are being told today, then we see that he genuinely means what he's saying. As tomorrow, he will leave, another governor will come and say that I just to go for Dr. Addison, so me, I am not part of what is happening.
But government is supposed to be a continuum.
Look, and to feed into the concept where Obama said we must get strong institutions and not strong men. This is a glaring photograph of it. And it mirrors the kind of situation we have in most of our institutions, where the institutions do not work. It revolves around just 1 or 2 people. And that's bad for us as a country.
That's the point.
I mean, if Dr. Addison is not there, or the bank's secretary is not there,
the whole structure doesn't work?
Head of commercial banking service is not there, the bank cannot work, the banks cannot function.
Johnny,
are we for real?
I can tell you that in September 2017, the man who was then in charge of, I don't know if he's still there, Reverend John Amanfu, told the media that the banks that were in distress are now okay. In 2017 September, he told the media that all the banks that were in distress, their capital adequacy ratio was going below 10%, are now back and they are okay. And so if today we are being told that I am not there and that is why it happened, then it means that any time Dr. Addison is not there, the bank, the central bank will run down.
Anyway, let's hope they do a clean job. Let's get into other issues.
Let's touch on Ghanaian Times as well. At the AU summit in Kigali, African leaders signed free trade pact to open up continent for trade and commerce. Also, withdraw Ghana-US Defense Cooperation Arrangement. Then court assigns lawyers for Major Maxwell Mohammed's killers. And then finally, Zoom Lion says, let's use practical ways of solving sanitation problems. But let's stay on this U.S., defense issue because, we've had Mr. Nitiwu say...
Is our ranting going to change anything?
No, our ranting should change because, Johnny, they're saying ideally it should come back to Parliament, let them sit and also listen to the views of
have made up
citizens.
Their mind.
My worry is this shifting blame of NDC, MPP again. Can we stop politicking it because the issue is there? It's real.
They won't
you
stop.
are
they
planning
won't
to
stop.
sign. No, I want them to stop because it doesn't really change anything. We're all here as citizens. We put you there without the color, of your party. We put you there as competent Ghanaians who are there to work for us. And so 2015, I hear 1998, it was signed. 2015, it was signed, and then there's a new one now. My problem is not what was. My problem is what currently is and what you're adding on to what used to exist. I'm worried about the fact that you're allowing them to bring things in without taxes. You're allowing them to use space at your airport, which is international, the only international airport you own. Whereas in US, it's a different ball game altogether. They have many international airports. So supposing even Ghana walked in.
The US have their own airports.
They do. Plus, they even have space on these other international airports. Supposing Ghanaians walked into US and asked for some space within the military base, it won't be allowed. We wouldn't, take it because they look at the breach in security. And so why do we easily give off these things? Is it because they are donors? Is it because we'll be getting something in exchange? I hear them say that we'll train Ghanaians on the side. But really, what threat do Ghanaians face when it comes to security that is as large as what the US faces because of its allies and the people they fight? It's not the same. And so at the end of the day, we are being shortchanged. That is what the basic of it. I want them to understand that fact that you think you're going into a mutual agreement, but they gain an upper hand because you're allowing them so many things that you won't get from them.
I'm looking at your beautiful face and I'm smiling. You know I'm smiling.
Because I'm just talking.
Because it
won't get anywhere.
Look, these people have made up their minds already. And in Parliament, it will be NDC, MPP, NDC, MPP. In the end, the Speaker will put the question and they will do yeah, no, end of story. Was it not the same back and forth, denial and counter-denial, accusation, counter-accusations that happened in the Gitmo 2 issue? Was it not?
It was.
That there was no agreement to keep them here forever, blah, blah, blah. And as recent as the beginning of this year, Shelley Ayakopoju was in Parliament telling us that the agreement at the time says that they can't do anything about it. They knew, you get it, back in opposition, that this was the thing. But politicians would always make political capital out of it. I say the politicians do not care about us. If they did care about us, they know that one V8 costs $90,000 and it could buy more than 700 beds for the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to have in this emergency ward. But they just don't care. They'd rather see the pregnant women lie on the floor, and newborn babies go without incubators and oxygen, and they don't care. And they will come and say, yesterday, Eric Chum was here. He's the deputy at the Ghana Export Promotions Center. He was telling Bright that, when these guys bring their ammunition and they are exporting it, they will pay. Now, the agreement, as I saw, said import and export zilch, nothing. So, the deputy at the export organization is telling us that they will pay. In the meantime, the agreement says they will pay zilch. So, where was he getting his information from?
Let us pray.
You get the point.
Johnny, let us pray. Let us pray. For me, Parliament, is it indeed the case that the agreement put before the committee was not signed? From what we're hearing from
that's what they are
Nelson
telling us.
But then if cabinet approved, it must be signed before it goes there. So,
but I'm only praying that because this will certainly go through Parliament, the NPP's majority can easily pass this, even if the minority decides to walk out, they can pass it. I'm just hoping that when it gets to the House will be able, because there are certain, look, the Times is reporting of certain things in the agreement that we're hoping that Parliament, the House will be able to to debate it and remove those things. Look, we are told that the agreement has no termination point.
Right.
So this government is signing the agreement, and it will bind on all other governments until perhaps our ancestors come. Okay, but how do you sign an agreement today and it has no termination point? So I'm hoping that Parliament will be able to get rid of some of these things, particularly with the waiver on taxes and exemptions. I mean, this is a poor country, and the Americans too. Why do you want to do this to us?
Anyway,
you were owning a country.
Poor.
You do anything that would benefit you.
That's
a very unfair question.
You know we are poor.
They don't know you are poor because you are riding a V8, but they don't do that in the country.
You are coming to train our people with $20 million, and then you are telling us that we shall allow you to come and do all that you are doing without paying taxes.
Right.
What kind of life
you're
is
asking that question, and we are going to sign.
Because he knows your people will allow it.
An African trade agreement,
nice.
okay, to open it up. Try traveling from Accra through Seme to Nigeria. Come back with a report and tell me if the so-called African Union or ECOWAS is working. So even among our ranks and our flanks, we're not able to deal with these issues.
But when US
now,
comes
we do
in,
know
we give
that
freely.
even in Africa, the English-speaking countries are aligned to their former colonies, the British. The French-speaking countries, which is why they didn't sign on to the EPA, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, they are aligned to France, so that they all cringe onto something. It's a messy situation.
Look, it's not nice. When we are coming,
let's take a break.
When we are coming to take this, you collect our money. Then you come and say that.
The Bank of Ghana has taken over UniBank and has appointed KPMG as a new administrator. Talking about, takeover, this is not the first time we've heard about such development. We can talk about UT Bank and Capital Bank. And I even spoke to a credit consultant, and he gave me a gist that 9 banks are likely to collapse out of the over 30 existing banks in the country. Doesn't this really paint a gloomy picture of the banking sector? Let's know your thoughts on this. Welcome to Daily Rant.
First off, it's like, we can't trust our banking system anymore, because if you keep putting money in a bank that you know is destined to fail, then you'd rather put your money in a bank that you know has anchor in the system. So if the bank...
How do you know the bank has an anchor?
Well, mostly Ghanaians look for the international banks, because that one, the government does not really have that much say in the matter. You see? So the local ones are the ones which are dwindling because they can't really plant their feet in the system.
Yeah. The banks are too much in the system, firstly.
And that's about 30 of them.
The banks are too much, seriously. And Bank of Ghana taking over another bank, it's somehow questionable, but like, well, let's see.
You can't trust them. You can't trust which bank to save in. You don't know how your resources, your hand-earned money is going to be like at the end of the day. You don't know when to access it. As early as when I was saying, a colleague of mine needed money urgently in the morning because she was going to have some scan in the morning, and she couldn't get her money because the place was closed and she didn't have an ATM. So with these things, you
was actually opened at noon. I guess she went a bit earlier. So.
Yeah, earlier, because she needed it at the time. She should be able to access her money
anytime. Yeah.
So if such things happen, the person tends to be stressed and wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at the end of the day, because the person can't do what he or she needs to do at a particular time, things just goes.
Exactly, I get it.
Maybe most banks say that maybe they're registered on the Bank of Ghana. That's what they claim, but maybe they're not meeting the supposed credentials. So that's what I think.
But one thing is, I know after the announcement, a day after the announcement, the branches across the country were open to panic withdrawals because people would want to go and take all their money because they are scared maybe their deposit will be affected. And it's understandable. I would also do the same. But can we encourage people to know that, okay, when things of this sort happens, they should be very calm about it?
Where are they taking the money to? Where are they taking the money to?
Because you are scared. I think
no, you are scared. You are scared. Bank of Ghana is taking over. Bank of Ghana is the Bank of Ghana. So where are you taking the money to? They're just changing management. So where are you taking the money to? Are you going to give it to a microfinance or something?
No. Your grandmom or your grandpa in the village wouldn't understand this.
The terminologies,
So definitely he or she will want to go for his or her money and keep in the house. So when an armed robber or whatever, it doesn't matter to that person.
But they are not taking your money.
I have my
the
money.
takeover doesn't mean they are taking your money away. You still get your money back. The taking over doesn't mean they are taking your money away.
Not everybody would understand that.
So maybe that's why we have, let's say, PROs or banks, and when even customer service personnel. When you enter the bank, you have customer services. So if you approach them, they'll tell you the situation. They'll surely explain everything to you. Even though maybe they cannot attend to anyone, but they'll still explain everything to you. So you need to make inquiries. This is the time we are supposed to make inquiries about banks. We don't need to rush to banks to just, in the name of they are being taken over by Bank of Ghana or whatever, so we are going to take our money. So where are we taking the money to? That's the question.
But the thing is,
don't you think the people of Ghana should be at least informed as to how to go about this? I mean, it's the Bank of Ghana. I mean, they should be able to communicate to the public, you know, on how to best go about this issue. Because you can't tell me that where is your money going to is going to be the same, what's it called, all the way, when you've not told me personally as to how it's going to be.
Maybe there may be slow instances. Let's say the rate at which you want to receive your money or withdraw your money will not be the same at first, but it's a process. We just need to trust in the process, and we'll get there.
These things have not been happening, okay? This is the second time it's happening. So when it happened the first time, they should have gone round, or they should have had adverts or taught people on radio, television, and other things to make them understand that when these things happen, these are the procedures.
You can relax. But so surprisingly, people that go there to withdraw money, they don't need the money.
They don't need the money.
They don't need the money. But just the money.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So for us, it's my money there. That means you're responsible to me. I can access it at any time, and I can question you about it at any time.
Exactly.
So therefore, if you are doing something about my money, then you should come back and talk to me first. I should know about it
makes
first.
sense.
Then you explain to me the reason why you're doing what you are doing, so that I don't panic.
Okay, this is not the first time. This is not the first time there's been a takeover. We can talk about UniBank, Capital Bank,
and there hasn't been any
explanation.
Doesn't this paint a gloomy picture of the banking industry?
It does.
It does.
That's what I meant by I can no longer trust the Ghanaian banking system. I'd rather have my money in a foreign bank than put it in Ghanaian bank, or at best put it under your mattress. It's safer there.
I spoke to a credit consultant. He said 9 out of like the 30 banks likely to collapse.
So
if measures are not put in
one
place.
has gone, the second one is done, and then this one is the third one, and we don't have any information that the citizenry is not advised or taught or educated on what. How and what?
Don't you think we have to blame Bank of Ghana for this situation?
But no.
A bank can have liquidity challenges, and Bank of Ghana can support. You know, as like I said, at say entirely. So let's manage it for a while. But when it gets out of hand, that's when maybe there can be a takeover.
I don't have a problem with their taking over. But I have a problem with the communication system.
Yes.
I don't understand why they are taking over. I have been in school. I have schooled at least, so I understand. I know the system.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of the person, maybe somebody in the house who is saving but just don't know what's going on.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Panic. That's panic is what I'm trying to prevent. That's panic. At least communicate to us. Communicate to us. This is what we are doing. This is how we are handling it.
So what are we not doing right? Because most of the international banks, we don't hear of these takeover.
No.
It's the indigenous banks. And it means, don't you fear that the local banks, are going to, die out? Like, or do you want some measures?
We have something we've been saying that something you don't know doesn't kill you. Then it's better you don't tell us, then change the management within. Then we will still know that our money is safe, and we don't even know that you've taken over.
Many of the banks operating now shouldn't be banks. Microfinance or credit union. If there's a minimum requirement, and after you assess yourself, and you realize that in the next 5 years, I wouldn't be able to sustain this bank.
Exactly.
You shouldn't
There can
go
be a
in
major.
for that.
Wait.
What do you think, major?
Wait.
No, but
you're
if
talking about
you
the next
can't,
5 years.
no.
What if then
You
in the
should
next
have-
5
you
years
should
that
have
person will
future-
get investment to overcome that situation?
So the banking sector is serious business.
Yeah, exactly.
And so even the minimum requirement, people think we should even increase it.
Yes.
So that, you know, if you
There
know
will
you
be
don't have the
standards.
muscle, don't
You
go
don't-
there.
you
Don't go there.
Don't go there.
You are dealing with people's life.
Most of these bank collapses. It's not
The owners
because
of this
they
bank,
cannot
the
do
owners
that
of this
or
bank,
that.
they are
That
very
because
smart.
they cannot sustain themselves
They are very
to
smart.
a certain point for a long period of time.
The auditing firm KPMG is managing the affairs of, you know, UniBank now.
Yeah.
How sure are you, how confident are you that they can turn around the fortunes of UniBank? Let's say they can bounce back.
If they are not that good in the first place, that contract or that destiny won't be given to them. They can do it.
Yeah,
That's
KPMG,
exactly. That means before it was given to them, they presented
They've got some,
a record.
track record there.
That means they can do that. It has been given to them. But if they can't do it, that means it's telling points clearly that this thing has been politicized.
Yeah, totally down with Ghanaian banks. Seriously. Which bank? Echo Bank.
As usual. Yes, because I don't see the need if I can't trust that it's going to be stable. I'm not even talking about my money being safe. If I can't trust the banking system in Ghana to be stable enough for me to put my money in, then what's the point?
They can only do something when they are objective about what they want to do.
Yeah.
If they really want to put UniBank back on their feet
In 6 months.
in 6 months, they can do it. Only if they want to do it.
Okay.
There's nothing impossible we can't do
Just put your mind to it.
if you put your mind to it. So if they want to do it, they can do it. Unless they don't want to do
6
it.
months. In 6 months. Monetary issue 6 months. If you recovery of loans, do you know how much it takes to recover loans?
No, but you know, it's not one person who has
Just imagine
taken the huge sum of money that is gone, okay? Other people have taken also. So the little bits of
Because
it.
talking about loans, I know the Bank of Ghana has considered that government contractors are partly to blame for this liquidity challenges.
So how would they get
it has been given to government officials, and I'm telling you, even retrieving those loans back alone can take more than 3 years.
Today's discussion has been on UniBank's takeover by the Bank of Ghana. KPMG has been appointed the new administrator. Let's see how it pans out over the years. Let's know what you think about this. Log on to our social media platforms. On Facebook is News on TV3, and on Twitter is our News TV3. A sample thoughts of students here at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. Thanks for watching.
Right. Daily Graphic says government minority sharply divided over Ghana-US defense cooperation. The defense minister's photograph is here. Bank of Ghana intervention in UniBank timely. The story is captured on page 20, and angry UniBank customers besiege branches. The Times says African leaders sign free trade pact to open up continent for trade and commerce. Also, the Times has the defense agreement cooperation story. Also, court assigns lawyers for Major Mahama killers. And Daily Heritage talks about Mahama attacks Otabilon over animal TV. NDC signs secret deal with U.S. military. The defense minister is said to have told the press yesterday. The Independent stays on that agreement. NDC MP causes stir, walks out of committee meeting over U.S. military camp deal. But government says NDC minority are hypocritical. The Statesman continues that story. NDC politics with UniBank myopic Professor Quarty there. And it also captures the defense story. But the Finder completely stays away from this. The Business Finder says ECG concession in jeopardy, but MEDA disagrees, assures all is well. Those are some of the newspapers I have this morning. My guest to do the talking, the Deputy Communications Director of the NDC, Fred Agbonyo, is here. Fred, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Hope you're doing great.
By the grace of God.
Thanks for joining us this Thursday morning. And Richard Asante-Yeboah is a member of the MPP's communications team. Good morning, too.
Good morning,
Hope you're doing great, too.
By the good grace of God, we are soldiering on.
Welcome to the show this morning.
The man's title has changed. He's now the spokesperson for what? Government infrastructure, was it? Tell us.
Fred, you are giving Richard a new title.
Oh, that is my brother.
Richard, is that your title? The spokesperson on infrastructure?
Yeah, government spokesperson.
Okay.
Let's keep you up to speed.
All right, okay. I'm grateful. Richie speaks on infrastructure for government.
The fact that you don't want his mischief to get to you this morning. And I appreciate that, my brother.
All right. I'm sure we'll be getting to you on several issues with infrastructure. Thanks for your presence this morning. Now, the Daily Graphic this morning on page 16 talks about this story that I sure won't go away today or tomorrow, because the Daily Graphic is reporting that the government and the minority in parliament yesterday continued to slug it out over the defense cooperation agreement between the U.S. and Ghana. While government is justifying the proposed agreement with the U.S., the minority called for the immediate withdrawal of the agreement from parliament. They said that the proposed agreement would denigrate the sovereignty and autonomy of the government and the people of Ghana, as well as the laws of the country. In the light of the above, we demand an immediate withdrawal of the agreement from Parliament, pending the holding of broad consultations and a thorough national discussion involving all relevant stakeholders. A statement signed by Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu and the ranking member of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Samuel Blakwa, is saying that. Now, government has tried to explain. It says that the U.S. government was making the request based on earlier memoranda signed in February 1998 and April 2015, which were binding on the two countries. The defense minister said the previous agreements were not known to Ghanaians because they were not taken to Parliament for ratification, even though the U.S. had been in the country under those agreements. Again, he said the hands of government are tied because the agreement had been signed already, and the best the government could do under the current circumstance was to negotiate or renegotiate with U.S. government to ensure that our relevant authorities have a say in aspects that concern them. So that's a story there. But yesterday in Parliament, we're told that the Member of Parliament for North Dying of the NDC walked out of the committee meeting protesting that the agreement had not been signed, and so he's asking that the right thing to be done. The Independent newspaper is carrying that story this morning. Now, Richard, let me start the conversation with you. The defense minister yesterday tried to explain to Ghanaians this whole thing. I think his main focus is to try to let Ghanaians know that this agreement isn't anything new and that the NDC had signed a similar agreement. Now, if Ghanaians are complaining that perhaps this agreement isn't good for the country, and the defense minister is trying to explain that this agreement is not new, it's been signed already, perhaps is it not right that we then put out this agreement into the public domain officially so that the Ghanaian public will see what exactly is in it?
Thank you very much, Bright, and good morning to you amazing viewers. I think, Bright, let's put the issues in the right perspective. And let's try to let Ghanaians know the bare facts, as we all know. Because it does appear that we've gotten the impression being created to the populace that an agreement has been signed. As we speak, in terms of the current processes that is being going through by the Defense Ministry, there hasn't been any signed agreement. Right. That fact ought to be made. Just that the processes has kick-started, and what ought to be done is we are making sure that due process is followed, and we are not looking at what was done in the past where certain processes were not followed. That is the difference between what is going on and what has happened in the past. Anybody making reference
but the defense minister is trying to suggest that this agreement is not new.
You see, that's what I'm trying to argue to. Anybody making reference to.
The minority is saying that let's get into broader consultations. A couple of Ghanaians are raising questions about the deal. Does it not suggest that they do not know exactly what is in the deal, and so the call for broader consultation is necessary?
I think, right, what people need to understand is that the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, believes in participatory democracy. He believes that we need to carry everybody along in terms of any decision that is being made on their behalf. That is why when the issue came before him and cabinet, he then advised that same ought to be after the Attorney General and other individuals or agencies that ought to contribute in this agreement, i.e. the Interior Ministry, the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and the Defense Ministry and other ministries have gone through it. He asked that it is sent to the people's representative, that's members of parliament, for them to scrutinize it. before it is approved or not. Do you understand that? So it does appear that all those processes in terms of making Ghanaians aware is being done to let people understand these are the issues. So if a document has been laid before Parliament, it becomes a public issue from there. Because Parliament gets access to it, they scrutinize it, they go through it. So it's not a secret document as people want us to believe. So that's the first point. The second point that people ought to understand is that, see, this agreement is predicated on an earlier arrangement or agreement that had been signed by previous government. And mostly it had been the NDC government. I have in hand a copy of an agreement that was signed by the NDC in 24th of February 1998. Right. And I read, my brother, with your kindest permission. Agreement regarding the status of the U.S. military personnel and civilian employees of the U.S. Department of Defense temporarily present in Ghana in connection with the African Crisis Response Initiative and other activities. Effected by exchange of notes at Accra, November 24th, 1997, and February 24th, 1998, entered into force February 28th, 1998. This was signed by the NDC or the government of Ghana during the era of President Rawlings. That is to show you the extent of the cooperation between Ghana and the U.S. in various fronts. Fast forward, in 2015, a similar agreement trying to equally take strength and also re-echo and put in more energy and clothes to what was signed in 1998 was also signed by Honorable Hannah Tete by the NDC government. But in that scenario, and in this particular scenario, these informations and these documentations were not laid before Parliament for parliamentary scrutiny. What the NPP government has done is that in terms of this particular arrangement, regardless of what Ghanaians think, regardless of what people think, and sometimes you feel like people are being misled by the sort of emotions and the fact that people's judgment have been clouded by their own anti-American stance and all that. We just want people to understand that that is why this government decided to take this agreement before Parliament, for Parliament to go through. So if members of Parliament, who are the people's representative, think that this is not good for the country, they have the powers to voice out there and also show same. So in terms of that particular modality and the processes to see whether this would even be agreed on in the first place, it still sits in the hands of Parliament. That's the first point. The second point we need to understand is that there has been a lot of weird analysis being put forward by certain social commentators and certain the understanding of certain aspects of it, which sometimes it beats my imagination. There have been issues.
Richard, even before you jump into what you think is wrong with the analysis, from what you just said, your conclusion is that this document we have in Parliament today is the same as what was signed in 97 and 2015. That's your conclusion?
Not necessarily the same, but I'm trying to let you know that it has been a process. A portion of it was, certain things were signed in 1998. Okay. And an aspect of it was equally signed in 2015. So when you even look at this current arrangement that is being looked at, it makes reference to all those agreements. And the fact that this is just to literally consolidate and also give a biting and also a few additions here and there.
So what you're saying that what we have in Parliament today could have some additions. You agree?
There's an omnibus of a sort.
Okay, move on.
Do you understand that? I think one thing that I want to
talking about some concerns that
we need to understand is that there has been this argument by certain individuals, particularly people from the minority, our brothers from the minority, and their stance that the U.S. is setting up a base. I'm sure everybody understands that whatever is going on cannot qualify to be a base. I remember when President Bush found himself in Ghana during the era of President Kufuor, and he was asked about, are they interested in setting up a base, or are they making effort in putting out a base in Ghana? His answer was that this particular thing is I don't want to use those, but buffoonery, to say the least, just to tell you that that particular thinking is something that cannot stand the test of time. It doesn't stand to reason. And America is not ready, and America is not interested in having a base in Ghana. There have been issues about tax waivers and other things. That is why this document is before Parliament. Parliament is the only institution that has been mandated by law to grant tax waivers under such circumstances. So if Parliament approves it, it means that they agree. But the point is that we need to understand these basic facts. There's no country that charges duties on military equipment that are being used by forces who have been placed in that country. If Ghanaians go to Liberia to go and perform particular functions, and we have our military going to the place, when they are going, their accoutrement, their uniforms, and other things that they go, that would aid them in their work, they do not pay duties on it. And it's a known fact. So anybody who wants to sit anywhere and say that it is abnormal or abnormality for Americans to come in with possibly, assuming it's agreed for them to come. Obviously, they are based here, they are doing some few training here and there over the period. The U.S. embassy and all those, it's American territory. They are guarded by the literal American soldiers and all that. They've been here all this while. Every particular embassy in this country has foreigners or foreign security agencies manning such installations. So that particular arrangement hasn't been a new thing. And it is done.
The fact that they are taking over our facilities is not new.
What facilities are they taking over?
The fact that the two facilities the defense minister said they were taking over, is it not new? Because it's the first time they're going to take over our two facilities, which the defense minister had told the public.
Right. You see, we are talking about specific facilities, but in terms of a country having access to certain facilities in this country, we have all these embassies in this country that has either a whole property that has been bought or built by themselves that they use for the operations. We have the alliance of the British Council, which is an affiliate of the British government or an extension of a sort. Do you understand that? All those facilities belong to those foreign countries. So we need to understand and appreciate all these facts. That in the mere fact that a country comes in and either seek the audience of the leadership of the country and say, you know what, we will need this particular installation to help us in training and other things. Because American soldiers sometimes have been trained by Ghanaians on certain fronts, especially when it comes to jungle warfare and that kind of activity. They come to Ghana for training. There are certain aspects of trainings that Ghanaian soldiers equally go out there and they benefit immensely from the Americans in terms of training on other retooling and other equipment. This has been the practice and the standard procedure over the period and over the years. So those are the things that we need to understand and appreciate. My brother, in terms of granting diplomatic amenities to these soldiers, as we speak, their defense attaches who hail from Ghana, who are living in the U.S. or working in the U.S. Those individuals are equally granted such amenities. Are we saying that because America is not crying foul, that has been a standard procedure? Let's ask other diplomats working in the American embassy, the Swiss embassy, the France embassy, and other embassies that we have in this country. Those who have been granted diplomatic status over the period.
Are they not diplomats?
See, a country,
these are American soldiers.
What I'm saying is that the people that I spoke about who are defense attaches and working in the U.S.
Some of them
on behalf of Ghana, they are those that I'm talking about. They are security people. They are not diplomats in the scheme of the definition of wanting to put them in that particular category. You understand that? Yet they benefit and they enjoy those sort of amenities.
Okay, wrap up for me. Let me go to Fred.
There's another thinking that any country that America has some level of cooperations with, that country is susceptible to attack from terrorists and all those things. I think this is far-fetched. We ought not to overstretch this argument. My brother, the biggest form of U.S. bases in the world, you can look at North Korea, South Korea, Japan. They literally have the biggest form of U.S. troops, where you have in excess of 50,000 troops with all manner of things being placed in such countries. Those countries check from history whether they've had any attacks. Because you see extra protection. Okay. Beyond that, let me ask you, Togo.
But why would you talk about Philippines and the others? Where the U.S. presence is attractive.
Before the U.S. got there, Philippines had its own issues, tribal issues and other things, and they had their own issues. Togo here, do they have any U.S. base there? But they continuously suffer from the act of terrorism. What about Nigeria? Boko Haram, do you have US base there? But they continue to suffer. Mali, they are suffering every now and then. Do you have US base there? So that particular argument and the idea that any place that we have US installation, US have had their embassies here and they've had cooperation in Ghana over the years. Have we suffered that kind of attack?
Okay.
I think let's understand the issues
Fred.
and let's not bundle things together and try to create the impression that something untoward is being done. I mean, if we had a heart and we're able to accommodate people that we claim were hardened criminals or terrorists, and this country, NDC era, they were able to even sign a secret agreement and brought such into the country. Why are you condemning a government or a leadership that thinks that let's present these issues before the people of this country? Let's let their representatives who are members of parliament to decide whether indeed we are ready for such things. When the needed consultations have been done, when the needed educations have been done, when we are putting the bare facts out there for people who understand and appreciate that these are the issues, that nobody's trying to conceal anything. And we've told the Ghanaians that there are other benefits that the military as an institution would derive.
Okay.
The government would derive. Remember the Millennium Challenge account and all those things that we continue to enjoy. These are some of the
Richard, I'm grateful. Let me go to Fred. Fred, so the argument yesterday of the defense minister is that the NDC minority is being hypocritical because he showed to the public agreement that you have signed in 98 and 2015, suggesting that what he has presented to Parliament isn't anything new and that you have already appended your signature. I mean, your party, when then in government, had appended its signature to this same agreement.
Well, Brian, thank you very much, and let me say good morning to our cherished viewers. I think that is pathetic that as a democratic country, some people think that others should not have the right to express an opinion or a view on things that affects all of us when it comes into effect. Now, the country in which we are living in belongs to us. The best any government can give Ghanaians is a peaceful and a stable environment to live in and do their work. And so when government are taking decisions or actions that has the potential of jeopardizing the peace and security of this country, it's only fair and proper that well-meaning Ghanaians will speak about it and draw the government's attention so that something is done about it. I don't know why this issue is now gradually being reduced into NDC MPP debate. It has all to do with the security of our country, which has no respect for any political divide. And so it's something that we should all look at collectively and say, okay, is it good for our country? Will it benefit us or not? Now, this whole argument that an agreement was signed 20 years back in 1998, a similar agreement was signed in 2015, and so what is happening today is a justifiable reason all of us should keep quiet, we shouldn't talk about it. It's so absurd, and I can't imagine this coming from a defense minister. And I think that you just asked my brother a very serious question here, that the agreement that was signed in 1998, I don't even know who signed the agreement that they're holding, they're running about with anyway, but the agreement that was signed in 1998, did that agreement provide any facility for American soldiers to come and settle down in this country?
We know there was nothing like that in that agreement.
Did that agreement allow them to deploy their troops from Ghana here to other lands? Can you allow me to? Did that agreement allow them to do any of those things? Do we have any facility here in Ghana, apart from American embassy, where Americans are stationed, are working, are deploying their troops and doing all the things that they want to do per this new agreement that has just come up? So what is this whole fuss that you want to rope everybody on board? You are doing something today. You are the government in charge of the country. You are taking a decision. Ghanaians in the decision that you are taking is not in the interest of this country. People are talking about it. And all you want to do is to justify it by going to bring some agreement that were signed far back in 1998 and an agreement you claim was signed in 2015 and want to use that to justify what you are doing today.
Can we take the defense minister's concern that the government hands are tied because of what you signed some years ago?
Pathetic.
Several contracts, several
agreements were entered into before MP came into office. They have found the need to cancel some of those agreements. They've arranged and renegotiated some of those agreements. If indeed the NDC administration took a decision, let's even assume for the sake of the debate that the decision that the NDC administration took was a wrong decision, should MP come and implement same? Is it not a new government? Can they terminate that agreement? But the current, if you check the agreement that they just brought, the 19 article agreement that they just brought, there is a provision in the agreement that if any country is not satisfied with the agreement, you can give a 1-year notice and then walked away. They've been in office for almost over a year now. So let's assume that this is an agreement in 1998. And they think that that agreement is not in the interest of this country. Should you follow through with it? Can't you terminate the agreement? And you and I have established on this platform that the agreement, Ghana and America have always had a relationship. Ghana and the United Kingdom, we have already had a relationship. Ghana and Germany, several countries across the world. We are not an island to ourselves. We have always dealt with several other countries in different ways. Where you are taking this country to now is something new, is a place we have never gotten to before in our lives. Now listen to the argument they are making. That what America is trying to put up is not a military base, and so it should not describe it as such. I heard the defense minister saying that, well, per the American standard, a military base should have about 1,000 to 10,000 soldiers at a place before you can describe the place as a base. And so if they come to Ghana to acquire some properties, he only mentioned 2 properties. He claimed that some 2 properties are around airports. Others we don't know. If you check the agreement is saying that they can expand whatever facility that they've acquired. They can even build more. They don't even need your permission to do all those things. Now, these people are supposed to reside in this facility. They are supposed to bring all their military, whatever, accoutrement to that particular facility. And they also have the right to deploy their people from that facility to other countries to go and do whatever they want to do. And you don't want us to call that place a base. What name do you want us to give to it? What is a base? What is a military base? It's just like telling us that if TV3 movie studios from here today to Malata Market to go and operate from there, because you are operating from Malata Market, it's not TV3 station, we cannot call it that you are broadcasting. It's not the same broadcasting. What sort of logic is that? The fact and the reality is that what you are doing today is that you are establishing a military, U.S. military base in Ghana. You need to accept that reality. U.S. has several bases across the world. They have more than 1,000 bases across the world. For you to single out 2 countries, mention Japan and South Korea, and say that there's no terrorist attacks on those countries as a result of U.S. base. Check all other countries, including the United Kingdom, including Germany, including the U.S. itself. And so what agreement are we making? What agreement are we making? Bright, where we are now, this country, we are in a country where even invisible forces, we cannot manage them. We are in a country where even common thieves and armed robbers, we cannot manage them. Our president goes to the United States and goes to promise the people of America that he's going to help them in fighting terrorism. Just when he returned to this country, then we heard the American ambassador running all over the place, singing lullaby, singing the praise of the president. Not knowing that this is what they have done, necodemously. When this document came out, you see on front of the document they have stated a secret document before it was sent to Parliament. I remember on Monday, MPP. You
saw a secret document on
oh yes, go and check the agreement. In front of the agreement, I have the soft copy. I can show the soft copy.
Richard, have you seen anything like that? Secret document.
Are you saying that I've not seen it?
Before Parliament.
I am saying that
he's suggesting that there was secret document.
It was written on it. It's a secret document before it was taken to Parliament. Now this again argument you are making that unlike NDC in the past, we didn't send the Gitmo issue to Parliament. You went to court. You went to Supreme Court. And Supreme Court has taken a decision that even military issues, you take them to Parliament for approval. So your government has no choice.
It's his argument that
you have no choice today than to go to Parliament.
His argument is that, well, government had taken the decision, and so it is up to Parliament, the people's representatives, to take a decision on whether this agreement.
Right. When you know the type of Parliament that we operate in this country, the type of rubber stamp structure that we have in Parliament today, that they have majority in Parliament, and once the executive take a decision, a cabinet has approved, there is nothing the minority can do apart from speaking about it. Don't you know that? So is there any way Parliament of Ghana today can say that we disagree with this particular agreement and so we will not allow it to pass? Look at the way, even the discussion as of now, everybody from NPP is defending it. Everybody from NPP is defending it. All the MPs are defending it. They have the majority in Parliament. So whatever happened, they are going to vote for it.
That's the
you understand?
Parliament.
They are going to vote for it. What you are saying that civil society, Ghanaians, as we have a voice. We have a role to play in this. We have elected our 275 members to go and represent us. Unfortunately, in their work, they don't represent Ghanaians entirely, but they represent their political parties. And so that is what is going to happen in this particular issue. What Ghanaians are telling the president is that we have several needs in this country. Ghana and America and the military-wise have been collaborating. They've been helping us with training. We've also been going there to study from them and all that. We've been doing that. What we need as a country today is for America to help us to fill our roles. It's for America to help us to fix our schools. It's for America to help us to create employment opportunity for the youth who don't have anything to do. It's for America to help us to solve our water problem. These are the things we are looking for America. It's not to come and use Ghana as a base to do whatever they want to do. Because the evidence abounds that wherever they have gone to set up these bases, those countries have become enemies of their enemies.
Give me one.
And several of them. I mentioned United Kingdom to you. Terrorists have been attacking them.
Of America,
you don't know they have a base over there.
America,
you don't know they have a base there. You don't know they have a base in Germany. Even in Sub-Saharan, can you allow me? Can you allow me? Even in Sub-Saharan Africa, can you allow me? Even
these countries have their own issues.
No, Bryce, but
allow him to.
Rachid, allow him. Even in Sub-Saharan Africa, even in Sub-Saharan Africa here, in Burkina Faso, in Cote d'Ivoire, we may not have military. We may not have US. Can you allow me, please? We don't have US base over there, but we have France bases over there. We have them over there, the same base, and enemies are using those bases to do other things. So what we are saying to the president and the government is that this is not what we are looking for at this moment. Let us manage our own small problem that we have. Help us to fight invisible forces. Help us to fight armed robbers. Today they are killing military men. Today they are killing the police. Civil servants are just at the mercy of the armed robbers and everybody. These are the things we are looking forward to, that the government that cares about the people of this country should be attending to. Not to go and bring this burden on us. Now you are giving these soldiers immunity. He claims that all diplomats have immunity. Go and check the agreement. These soldiers can come into our country. They are permitted to wear a military uniform and move on our streets. They are permitted to carry guns and move on our streets. Now, on an event that they destroy any property or they kill anybody in Ghana, we can't apply our laws to them. We can't take them to any court. If you check the agreement, you don't even have any terminating point apart from giving a 1 year signal that you are not interested. So even our court, even if there's an issue today, you can't say you are taking them to court for any court to preside or to adjudicate over any issue. So the agreement that they have come up with is telling us that, yes, this is not the first time that militaries go to country and they don't have to pay tax and all that. Per this agreement, they are not only coming with soldiers, they are coming with other staffs who will live at this military base that they are creating. These people, whatever they bring to our country, I think you have not read the agreement. If you have read the 19-page, if you have read the 19 article agreement,
are coming to sell food or rice.
I am saying that they are bringing workers. They are bringing workers who stay at the base. It is in the agreement.
You are behaving like you are bringing Americans who are coming to sell some mattresses, food or some shoes.
You see the way you are
trivializing the argument.
You are trivializing it.
That they are bringing.
The point I'm making. The point I'm making is that
they are talking about cooperation, intelligence cooperation, and see how they can assist us, train our people, we help them, we benefit from all these things. And here you are making look like somebody.
Americans have always been coming here. We have always been going to America to either study or to exchange ideas on military type or whatever it is. They have always been coming here. They've been going to our training camp to train our people. Nobody is against that. If Americans come and set up a base over here and they are deploying people from this country to other countries, how does that inure to our benefit in any way? How does that inure to our benefit in any way?
We're today, as we speak, about $20 million that will go to the army in terms of training.
So we are selling our peace and security for $20 million. Is that what you're telling me? Because $20 million, we should open up this country for terrorist attacks. Go to Kenya. Go and find out what's happening in Kenya. Because of huge military presence, U.S. military presence. Go and find out. All the terrorist attacks on them, the Al-Shabaab and the rest, ask them. They come up and look at the game.
Before they
please, can you allow, they do, okay. Find out.
Fred, get ready and wrap up for
the me. Point we are making, the argument we are making is that today where we sit, Cabinet has approved this document. NPP has demonstrated as a political party and their leadership, their members in parliament, they are all in support of this particular agreement. We in NDC and Ghanaians as a whole have come out to that this thing is not in our interest. Mr. President, we are calling upon you to look at it again. It will not benefit us. We have several things that we need in this country. America have helped us in several ways, just as we did for them in the past. They use our human resource. They use our natural resources in building that country. It is not out of place for them to extend stay back to us here in Ghana. But we are saying that we will not sit back as a sovereign country, a country that has won independence for more than 61 years, for them to come and preside over this country and create problems that we cannot solve. The little resource that we have, we want to use it to fix roads. We want to use it to feed our schools, to fix our hospitals. We don't want to be fighting wars with people over nothing. That is what we are saying.
All right. Let's go to the BNFT this morning. Page 3 has a story that starts from page 1. It says that our job is not done. That's the Bank of Ghana talking there. Now, a lot remains to be done to restore the safety, soundness, and stability in the financial sector. That's the Bank of Ghana. Even as it takes control of yet another bank, 7 noticed that it will continue to strengthen its supervisory and regulatory role. Apart from full implementation of the new minimum capital requirement for banks by the end of December 2018, the central bank said it will also address specific risk from high non-performing loans, poor corporate governance, and poor risk management. Its governor, Dr. Ernest Addison, told the press conference that the bank is putting in several other measures to sanitize the banking sector. Richard, let me begin with you. Dr. Addison is reported to have said that the banking sector is not in crisis, and that what the Bank of Ghana is doing is simply to ensure that there is sanity on the banking sector. From where he sits, there is so much mess there. Now, is the bank on top of what it is mandated to do?
I think over a period, some of us had issues with Bank of Ghana because we thought they were not being proactive. But it does appear that those criticisms got to them, and I think they've been up and doing over the past couple of years. And I think that is what we expect from them, that they don't need to wait for everything to run down to zero before they come into PR. And I think they've been up to scratch on the kind of development that is going on within the banking sector. I mean, there have been a lot of issues and turbulence within certain institutions over the period. Anybody who has investment or who has banking background or within the industry knows this and understand that there are a couple of banks who were kind of struggling within the past 4 or 5 years. So it has been a Bank of Ghana attitude to try and see how we can resuscitate some of those banks, and those that need to kind of merge. You realize that over the couple of years there have been mergers here and there and acquisitions here and there, trying to make sure that they kind of capitalize themselves through other ways of using other investment to assist them in whatever it is that they are doing. Right, I think there's one fact that we need to appreciate and understand. Right, if you see a lady that has delivered today, a lady that has put to birth today, it tells you that that particular woman has been pregnant for a couple of months, right, or has gone through the process for some period before the arrival of the baby. So any bank that you hear stories about, or you hear that they are going through some difficulties and now it's coming to the fore, it's coming to the public domain, you realize that those issues have been in there over the period, but there were efforts to try and see how they can give them the period to reposition themselves and see whether they can find more funds to assist them in whatever it is that they would do, and also restructure their operations and reform their way of doing things. Because most of the things have to do with corporate governance and also the way they operate. And when people are literally ready to sort of cook figures and present false figures and create first impression about themselves over the period. That has been, because when you're working with a false identity, if you are working, you are living in a falsehood. When you give an impression that it's like somebody tells you that you tell me your mother is asleep and your mother has gone to the farm, and you continue to lie to me that your mother is asleep. When a moment comes that your stomach is calling for what is needful, you will not be able to deliver, or your mother will not be able to deliver, because your mother is not in the house, she's going to the farm. But if you make the fuss out there and make it to people who can assist you, they can come to your aid. We know the difficulties that certain banks were going through before even this UniBank saga. We had UT and Capital Bank and the difficulties that they went through. Preceding that, we have seen activities of microfinance institutions and companies that were literally operating a kind of Ponzi schemes in certain parts of the country. And we can talk about DKM and its siblings God is love, and all those funny names that we know of. And the kind of harm that it brought to the good people of this country, that people lost their investment. And when those kind of difficulties came, there was no political collaboration, because you did not know who was MPP, who was NDC, who was PPP. It literally caught everybody. Teachers were literally caught in there. Police officials, government officials, then politicians, pastors, churches, traders, literally every member of society had one or two of their members who were literally engrossed in that, and they lost millions, and they are still finding ways of recouping them. Some of them even died as a result of it. So at the moment, the stance of Bank of Ghana has been that the moment they realize one or two things going on, and they give you time to sort of resuscitate the institution, and they realize that you are not coming up, you are not meeting up, they will come in, take over, and try and put in new management strategy. That is what this one, they brought in KPMG to look at the whole thing and manage.
Can we fault the Bank of Ghana for having supervised this?
I think you can't necessarily do it, because you see, I've seen correspondence from the Bank of Ghana to, for instance, UniBank on various occasions within the last couple of years to either warn them, advise them. They've had a series of meetings. I've seen all these things, trying to make sure that, because they are local banks, and the effort of this country over the period is to try and put in some level of injection, also assist the local businesses to stand on their feet. Remember when the credit crunch came in the US, JP Morgan and other institutions and other American institutions that were struggling, the government then came in to assist them. So in this scenario, what the Bank of Ghana is trying to do is to, one, protect depositors. Well, that's the most important and most fundamental thing that ought to be done.
The harm has already been caused.
No. The harm, if it has been, they wouldn't wait till that moment comes. They know that the system is quite jeopardized. But the point is that they've come in at the right time to, one, take over, because they make sure that their investments are protected. They will not wait for the company to run down. So they brought in KPMG to manage it, take over the managerial affairs of the institutions.
If you take UniBank, this bank's capital adequacy ratio is -24. So virtually, I mean, it can't even pay for depositors' funds in there. It might have to sell assets.
I understand your concerns. Understand your concerns. But you see, there's other thing that we need to look at too. I think we need to also, because you see, credit and debit kind of analysis we are looking at here. You can equally look at their loan portfolios, the amount of loans that they've granted to individuals, or the possibly even contractors who have to procure loans from them to do government projects over the years who haven't been paid. If they are paid, their money should. Remember, that is when the government came in, the government was quickly looking at making sure that contractors are paid, because when these things happen, it affects these banks. Remember the energy bonds that was we raised. The idea was that most of these oil marketing companies and bulk oil distributors have procured loans, done LCs and other instruments from some of these banks. And these banks are struggling because of the commitment they made to these businesses. And whatever business that they did, most of them did it with the government then. So if they are not, they've even gotten repayment, the bank equally is not getting. So what it is was that they were literally dying. And some of these banks were, because remember in 2016, I think Dr. Baumia and other even experts pointed to the fact that we need to look at the banking sector. We need to make sure that we try to be up to speed with our commitment to some of these contractors, because the point is that they've gone for huge loans. Because if somebody is a supplier of medicine and is under the health insurance operations, and the person has procured loan from a bank and he's done his due to the government, and they expect payment and payment hasn't come over the period, it will affect operations of that individual, it will affect the operation of the bank. So that is when government came in, close to a billion Ghana cedis have been paid in terms of that particular area. In terms of the energy sector, bonds have been raised, some more than half of such amount have been paid of contractors.
To offset the loans of banks.
Yeah, to pay the people. When you pay them, some of them, the moment they are paid, they make payment through them. But the payment, you will not be given the physical cash. The payment will be made to you through your banks. Right. So when the money hits your account, your bank will deduct their due, and whatever is due, you will be given to you. So these are some of the things that we've done over the period, and some of the banks too, it had to do with bad management practices. You see, there are banks that have other subsidiaries,
and which the regulator could not have known.
Yeah, see, some of the things they conceal it. And you get to know, by the time you get to know, it's either too late or virtually or out of the window. For instance, certain banks have set up subsidiaries. They have subsidiaries like maybe insurance outlets, arrangement where even contracting staff, they have their own subsidiary that recruits for the banks, and they all manner of things. So what it is that sometimes they even give funds to those subsidiaries of theirs.
Without the knowledge of the regulator.
Not even necessarily the knowledge of the regulator, but it hurts the bank in the final analysis, because the point is that most of those facilities are not secured. So you overexpose the bank. So if you overexpose the institution or the bank because of certain practices that you get yourself involved in, at the end of the day, it comes back to hurt the institution, because those loans might not be secured. I hope you're getting me. And if directors and owners of the banks
and these are things that the regulator should be checking, because if a bank is giving out a loan that is not secured, I think the regulator has a role in there.
Well, I mean, I get you.
Loan portfolio and how they are given. But let me go to Fred and come back to Fred. The concern that perhaps the regulator is not doing enough. That is why we're seeing banks behaving in this way. Is this something we can legitimately blame the regulator for it?
Well, I think that Bright, it's not for nothing that the central bank was set up. One of their main reasons really is to supervise the activities of commercial banks and make sure that they are complying with the laws that govern their operations. And they don't do this only at the end of every year. They're supposed to go there and when go to the institutions, pick their books, find out if everything is being done right. So it comes to me as a surprise if they have to wait for maybe after a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years before they get to know that some wrongdoing is taking place in a particular bank. They're supposed to have known ahead of time. That's why they don't get to know. Sometimes I find it difficult to understand. But I think that every Ghanaian should be very worried that local banks are folding up the way it is going. So far, I think that 2 had gone. This one we are told that the management has been taken over. As what is going to happen to you after 6 months, I can't tell exactly. Now, these banks, apart from the fact that people keep their deposits to the banks, it creates huge employment opportunity for several people. And anytime this takes over, or anytime they run into bankruptcy and they have to fold up, that people also lose their jobs. And so it's something that everybody, including government, should be very, very, very worried about and see how we can quickly help resolve the issue. I'm happy that Richard himself acknowledged the fact that even America, when they went through their recessions and the rest, the central bank really has to move in to help the institutions to be able to come up and continue to perform. I am surprised to hear that our central bank got involved at some point in time, and yet the needed results was not achieved. Up until now that they are taking the decision that they are going to take over the management of the bank. So what kind of involvement they do? The only money that they doled out to the banks, or were they interested in how the bank was run, the administrative and all of that thing that they needed to have done? I don't know what they did. Now, we all know fundamentally if we talk to these banks that the major problem they are facing today is the fact that people have taken loans from them to work for the government, and government has not paid them their monies. One would have thought that should be the number one thing that we'll do. The government should look for the money and quickly pay off these debts that are accrued to contractors who are going to take loans from the bank. Because once they get their money, they will pay the banks who can quickly balance their books and then become more functional. But if you are not paying the loans to the contractors, and so they're also not paying to the banks, then we are going to have the problem that we are having now. We have been told so far that about some 9 other banks are still in distress that the Bank of Ghana is looking at. I don't know what that will mean, especially for job creation. For me, that is the number one thing. Now, when one person loses a job, it affects several other people, who are depending on that person. And so it's something I think that government will need to look at very well. You see, I have a difficult when issues like this comes up and quickly you try to give a man of analogy when you say a woman gave birth today, the woman was pregnant long ago, to suggest that this is starts today. When you take over governance, you take over both assets and liability. It is your duty and your responsibility to fix whatever problems that it is your duty. When I'm speaking, when I'm talking, I keep quiet. It is your duty and your responsibility to fix whatever you meant. I remember in 2009, in April, President Nado organized a press conference and said, if the economy is broke, fix it and stop complaining and pointing fingers at the former administration. You have been in office for barely a year now, and banks are folding up. You should be worried as a government. If indeed we are doing something right, if indeed we are supporting these banks, the banks should not be folding up. And so Ghanaians should be asking, what is it that you are doing wrong? We stay in office for 8 years, the bank they fold up. Now you mentioned the DKM and the rest. There's no way Bank of Ghana could have regulated activities of DKM and God is loving. These institutions were not registered as microfinance institutions. They were not registered as microfinance institutions, so Bank of Ghana didn't have any jurisdiction. They didn't have any jurisdiction about them. You see, they were running commissions on radio.
Rachel, you allow him.
The way they operated,
Johnny for some.
Bank of Ghana, if you and I and Bright today decide that we are going to put money aside and we give it to ourselves at the end of every month, can Bank of Ghana come in and come and regulate activities? And that is how they operated.
All right.
The point I am making is that
Fred, let me go to Johnny and come back. Wrap up on this. Let me go to Johnny and come back.
I am not doing a partisan politics with this particular issue. I'm only saying that the central bank, the Ministry of Finance, the government should quickly move in. It is not in our interest for local banks to be folding up because they are creating the employment for our people.
All right. Johnny, good morning once again.
Good morning, Senior Bright. Michael Amini in the United Kingdom says the Bank of Ghana should be applauded for saving UniBank from total collapse and protecting the interest of UniBank's shareholders and its customers. But minority statement that the takeover of UniBank by KPMG is politically motivated is political rhetoric and loose talk to achieve political points. The financial challenges and insolvencies of our indigenous banks like UniBank is as a result of the erstwhile Mahama-led government's inability to defray its indebtedness to UniBank to financing government projects awarded to their NDC party contractors, while most of the projects were abandoned. The minority should give us a break of their double standard. Good morning, Senior Bright and Johnny. Please tell Dominic that we don't have a second Dr. Nkrumah to fight the U.S. this time. Or why U.S. military base for what? If he can't take a better decision for the country, he should step down. Simple and quick. You say Osman Burgerson to the defense minister. Good morning, 3 News crew. My question is, why is it that NAT is not having interest on the teacher's salary arrears? We work for 12 months and our employers have just paid only 3 months and we're asking them to pay the rest of the money. Look, a whole NAT saying, look at what a whole NAT is saying. What is wrong with this, our minister, jumping from one media station to another to defend the coming of American soldiers to our country? Are you a defense minister for Ghana or America? You are being appointed. You are appointed by a president and not Trump. Our taxes are used to pay you. Tell them we don't need them. YY Tia in Tamale. Jane from La says, my dear, NDC has lost focus of debate. Today, military base, tomorrow, bust, etc. They should rather focus on who becomes their presidential candidate. Sewa Mami Sewa says, I also think that the remaining banks that might suffer the same scandal as UniBank should be made known to the public. You think so? Good morning, Senior Bright and Johnny. Please tell Dominic that we don't have a second Dr. Okay, we read this already. Good morning, guys. I love this program so much, but I think you should bring neutral-minded people on like you used to do before, the educators on issues against politically minded people who only come to muddy the waters. Thank you, King Sosa from North Kaneshi. Frederick Akwesi Kuma in Wasekropon says, the fact must be stated clearly. The U.S. is not setting up a base in Ghana. This agreement is a military cooperation. The NDC and government brought in terrorists into the country without parliamentary approval. But today, making noise over a military cooperation, they started. Why this hypocrisy and double standards? My dear brother Fred Agbenyo is doing a great job on our behalf. Keep it up and more grace to your elbows. Emmanuel Isaka, Garo NDC constituency organizer. Good morning, Bright. The NPP claimed that this agreement was initiated and signed by the NDC government, but never saw cabinet approval because it wasn't good for the country. NPP should stop deceiving Ghanaians, and any attempt to cooperate with the U.S. in this line would only expose our country to hazardous and harmful diseases in the near future. Stay up and say no to U.S. military base in Ghana. Suleiman Faris in Tamale. Asante says, I want to believe you heard truth. USA security will not help us. Please stop comparison and work as you promised, Ghanaian. You see from Bright. Thank you very much. We'll read some more of your messages after this. Right, grateful.
Okay, all right. Let's wrap up on this one briefly. This one just about 1 minute each for all of you. African leaders have signed the Free Trade Pact. We're told that it's expected to encourage more intra-country trade. Is it what we need? Have African leaders now realized they need to do things among themselves? Rachel?
I think this is long overdue, and I think we should, as Africans, we should move away from the rhetorics, the parroting, the
go into action,
and start acting and doing things for ourselves. Because obviously, if you look at the total population of Africa, we are now clenching to the billions. If we're able to trade amongst ourselves, we would benefit and derive more within. Because the point is that we sit here and Nigeria is literally importing salt from Brazil to
Ghana
assist them in their oil. When
opportunity
Ghana
to-
can easily supply them. I was happy when, at a point in time, we decided to trade with Nigeria, and we're getting through the West African pipeline, and we're getting some gas to support our.
I mean, that
our
one
assets.
is not really.
But the point is that we ought to open up the space and trade among ourselves more, and make it easier for the movement of human beings and other goods and services. Because now, when you go to certain African countries, especially North Africa, you go there and sometimes they behave like they are not even Africans. That's why you can see Libyans taking people from West Africa and other and trading them as if they are selling goods on the market. Because of that kind of thinking, I think if we can achieve the aims and objectives of the AU or the OAU as it used to be known in the past, all these sloganeering and the talking and the plenty accords of signing wouldn't help if we do not start putting things in action.
Okay, Richard, I'm grateful. Fred, just
well, right, better late than never. I think that, like Richard said, it's long overdue. It's something we should have done long before now. If you go and check the objectives of the AU and the OAU and all that, all these things were clearly enshrined in it. We should have done it. I don't know what has happened to our leaders. It has become a talk show. Everybody go there, we speak, we sign all manner of documents, and nobody gets to implement anything. The advantages outweigh the disadvantages if we decide to collaborate, especially on trade front, and allow ourselves to trade among ourselves. We've been talking about this single currency for even ECOWAS. I don't know how long it's going to take us. We have set up our own standard that we need to be able to achieve before we get to that point. It's becoming a problem. If you want to move from Ghana to Togo, get to the border and see what you go through. Burkina Faso, what you go through. So I don't know how we are going to do this. Like I said, we need to move beyond just paper and pen and practically do things. Let us see that we are one people. Once we do that, we can competitively compete with the European Union. We can compete for America and all that. You go and sign EPA agreement with them and you don't benefit. You go and sign AGOA agreement, you don't benefit. China now is more or less taking over the continent, and so we need to really sit up and work together.
Fred, I'm grateful. He's a Deputy Communication Director of the NDC, Fred Agbinyo, and Richard Asante-Yeboah is a member of the NPP's communication team. Gentlemen, grateful for your Thursday morning. And government spokesperson on infrastructure. Thanks so much for joining us this Thursday morning. Stay with us. We'll have sports after this. The rest of the comment will be read in the show. But Slums in the City is on at 8:30. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's talk about World Water Day, because that's what the world marks on the 22nd of March every year. But in Ghana, how are we marking the day in spite of the global theme of nature for water, how to explore how to use our nature to improve water? I've been joined by Mohammed Abdul Nasir, is a country director for Water Aid, and Atta Ahin, he is the vice president of Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation. Gentlemen, welcome and good morning to you. Happy World Water Day to all of us. I see Ahin took a sip already. But we keep celebrating this every year. Has it been beneficial? Start with you, Ahin.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. First of all, let me say good morning to your viewers. World Water Day was instituted, as it were, to draw attention to the importance of access to safe water. Not only for consumption, but also for development.
Right.
And so, just by the fact that we have been able to create this awareness, we have been able to instill the sense of awareness in people. I think to that extent, it has been very beneficial. Yes, and we've been able to draw attention for government to know the people who don't have access to safe water, and action is being taken. So I think that by and large, we are getting there.
Mohammed, is awareness enough? Is that all we demand?
I mean, awareness is just a starting point.
Right.
But there's more action required from policymakers, decision makers, and also from citizens. And until we get the 2 different or 3 different segments working together, awareness will never be enough. You know, policies will have to be implemented.
Right.
And we also need to ensure that where practices need to change, that indeed they change, especially with consumers of water.
I'll show you some clip of how people don't have access to water. Some are drinking something close to coffee, you know, coffee. And it's not coffee, it's water. That's the only water that they have. But this year's theme says we're using nature to improve water. How does it pan out in this country called Ghana? Mo?
Yeah, I think it's, we're used to the typical way of providing water. Drill a borehole, provide a mechanized system among those options, but that's not sufficient. This year's theme is deliberately chosen, you know, nature for water, implying that the answers to the challenges with water can be found in nature. But it's very difficult for us to deal with that. If you go to a typical community where farming is the main subsistence, you know, people farm along water bodies, they silt water bodies, and nothing happens.
Right.
You know, that needs to change. You know, when we even over-extract, we affect the recharge, and nobody controls that, or it is not properly regulated. So that is another.
I have seen a growing trend, and a growing trend, a worrying one indeed. You mentioned boreholes, and these days people will merely invite anybody to dig for them a borehole, whether the base is good, is not good, whether it's contaminated, is not contaminated. Does it scare you?
It does. First of all, we have to appreciate the science of the water recharge. And it's not everywhere that you can drill. But there are people who go to anywhere and they start drilling without even doing what we call the geophysics, hydrogeological surveys, investigations. Apart from that, you know, sometimes after drilling, even the water doesn't go through water quality analysis to be able to determine that the water is safe for human consumption. As soon as they drill, they put the hand pump or the submersible pump on it, and then they start fetching and drinking. It's worrying, and I think there should be regulation around that. Otherwise, we'll be serving people with contaminated
We'll talk
water.
more about that, but let's go to Kulin, where in the Wa West district of the Upper West region, where water is a very prized commodity for the folks around there. Brighton Aramfo was there with the missions team, and it brings us this report.
The community contributes 100 million. So, and we drill a borehole. It was water, but we don't have money to buy the hairs and then the pipes.
Over 400 people live here. The excitement is only because they have visitors. The community is quiet when there are no visitors, and there is virtually no activity. This is due to inadequate social amenities. There is no health facility here. A 30-minute walk or a 10-minute ride on a bike will take residents to Yala for health care. For pregnant women of Kulin, drinking this water is a danger because the facility can't take care of them properly. In this difficulty, water is a challenge. Getting the commodity is a headache. This is the only source. They would never pray for the dry season to come because the season is a nightmare in the search for water. This is what residents of Kulin here in the Upper West region rely on.
And I doubt the folks in Kulin can say Happy Water Day to themselves. This certainly is not a good story. And I saw the reaction on your face. What's running through your mind now? Tell me.
For me, I mean, this is a common scene. For those of us who work in the rural and peri-urban areas, you find a lot more of this situation. There are many people who don't have access to safe water.
Right.
Ghana has done quite well. In fact, currently, the MDGs will tell you that we are currently around 89% in terms of access to safe water. But there's a certain level of inequity where some have and others don't have.
Okay.
And sometimes we forget that this is not just a consumption issue.
Right.
It affects their education, their health, their food security, and their ability to relieve themselves from the shackles of poverty. So it's a much bigger problem than we are seeing. And I think that we need to take urgent action.
Let me ask you this one before we go for slums in the city. Nature is supposed to be used to get water. Are we getting it wrong in Ghana? Galamsey is in the mix. We're cutting off our trees, logging them. What are we doing wrong apart from those two?
We're doing a lot of things wrong. To begin with, you hear the common saying that water is life. But in a situation like this in Kulin, water is death. And we have failed them as leaders, you know, as decision makers, and something needs to change. The district authorities have a responsibility for ensuring that services are extended to communities like that.
Right.
When they fail and citizen groups are unable to hold them accountable, then we have a repeat of such situations. You have a healthcare center where people go hoping to return feeling safer, healthier, and so on. This is the kind of water that you probably have to use to take the medication. It won't help you.
It won't help you. We'll have a lot more conversation about it, but right in the heart of the capital city, close to the Flagstaff House, the seat of government, where the president himself resides, the most important man, who also has his private residence somewhere around that enclave. Two slums, Nima and Mamobi, have their own set of challenges. Take a look at Slums in the City, the much-awaited jaw-dropping Community Connect documentary, and it's right on your screens at this point.
Filth, despair, neglect, deterioration, ticking time bomb. These words perfectly describes the current situation of the twin slums of Nima and Mamobi, arguably two of the most famous Zango communities in Ghana. Their story is not a pleasant one, even in the 21st century. Nima presents a jaw-dropping view of a packed, decrepit, haphazard and unplanned housing units inhabited by impoverished people. Their needs are enormous, but the insufficient supply of shelter, water, electricity, employment, security, and good drainage system tops the wish list. These conditions have persisted since the early days, but haven't impeded her daily expansion. So, she continues to play host to a large number of rural-urban migrants from Ghana and parts of West Africa in an overwhelming fashion. Culture, religion, and tribal unity and diversity presents a delightful example of peaceful coexistence in the midst of all the squalor. Nima and Mamobi are strategically placed in close proximity to the Flagstaff House, the seat of government. In fact, Ghana's president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has repeatedly mentioned how he was raised in this vicinity and how he still keeps his Nima residence. But right in the center of these two communities lies the infamous Nima Gata project that serves as a boundary for the Ayawaso East and North constituencies. It travels about 1.2 kilometers from the Kaukudi Junction near the Kanda Highway all the way down into the Mamobi 441 township. The Alhamdu Gata, as it's also called, was initiated at the advent of the Atamil's government to ensure the smooth flow of wastewater and improve sanitation. Unfortunately, it now poses a threat to the lives of those that live near it. The project was earlier handled by Caspian Energy Ghana Limited, but it stalled twice between 2013 and 2015 after missing an initial 2012 completion deadline due due to financial constraints, lack of resources, and the political will to see it through. It was later re-awarded to Queiroz Calvaro, the Brazilian construction company that put together the Kwame Nkrumah Circle interchange. Their deadline was set for a period of 2 years between 2015 and 2017. Yet, in 2018, there has been next to no improvement and the story remains the same. Here is Kosami, a local government activist.
What is happening there is lack of commitment in dealing with the issue confronting the community. It seems the gutter was constructed some years back, in the 90s. So why can't we find a way of completing it so that water can flow properly into the main drain?
Presently, the sides of the drain are heavily choked with a carpet of waste, from human excreta and polythene bags to bottles and organic waste. The list is endless. In addition to wastewater from the households that meander through the alleyways to the end of the abandoned project, growing from stagnant to gaping stench and serving as a fertile breeding ground for mosquitoes, rodents, and cockroaches, the health implications need no explanation. There are also reported cases of homes being ruined by the floods. Structures built along the now uncompleted drain are suffering from cracks and are on the verge of collapse as erosion is gradually eating away the foundation of their shelter. Some residents have abandoned their homes for their own safety, but others remain adamant, determined to stay on. They toss in refuse behind their homes to fight erosion, which seems to be winning against their homes hanging on the balance. Children and adults use this abandoned project as a walkway to and from work and school. Particularly, the children find pleasure in watching cattle, sheep and goats reared on the sides in makeshift pens and ranches. With the livestock having a field day and feeding on just anything, the children run their own commentary over the Food and Drug Authority's silence to make the pastime worth the while. The Community Connect team was told how children have often fallen into the drain and gotten badly injured. Mazu is brother to Sunday, who lost his life after falling into the Alhamdu gutter. He explains.
He died in the gutter. He was walking on the gutter when he suddenly fell inside and he broke the leg. Before we got him, we took him to the hospital and we lost him.
Business is booming on the Nima gutter. Brisk business obtains despite the gaping stench. The plot thickens as food and other commodities are served on the platform of filth with careless abandon. Rakia sells a popular delicacy, cocoa and kose. She shares the rationale behind this idea.
Previously, this place did not look presentable to me for a food joint, but the boys that hang out around here mounted pressure on me to start this business so they can buy some. Initially, I did not feel comfortable selling food here, but now I have gotten used to the smell and danger. They buy from me, and some residents also patronize my eatery. I use mosquito coil to ward off flies and other insects.
With the predictions of heavy rains by the Ghana Meteorological Agency, residents now fear for their lives and property due to the fact that even well-thought-out communities are not spared the wrath of the rains. Maestro claims the first phase of the Mamobi drain was completed by the State Construction Company in 1999. However, the second phase, which traveled from Kaukudi Junction to Mamobi Bridge, seems to be going nowhere. It appears that Mamobi and Nima are sitting on a ticking time bomb. This is so because, after many years of sadness and doubt, the promises from officialdom to complete the project has just been nothing but words, making the lines of hope badly blurred.
He is believing. Today, the media general is here, the Community Connect is here. Johnny, I salute you. The whole world have to see this thing so that we are saying that the life of people of Mamobi Nima is very important. If they don't do this thing, and if it rains in the midnight, what will happen? People will not like it.
In 2013, some angry youth of the area issued an ultimatum to the government of the day to either complete the project and wipe away their symbol of disgrace or face multiple demonstrations. That, indeed, yielded close to nothing. It is true that water is a prized commodity, but must it be fetched from any source despite the consequences? But when a burst pipe profusely wastes clean, potable water, it becomes very worrying and the questions start popping up in your mind. And if indeed cleanliness is rarely next to godliness, as they say, will God like to dwell in this mess at Nima and Mamobi?
This is the lowest point of a project that raised the hopes of the people of Mamobi and Nima so high. And with the rains fast approaching, their physical and medical threats heightened. Who do they look up to? What could they possibly hope for? And who do they turn to for help? Who will fix this mess here at Nima and Mamobi? For Community Connect, this is Johnny Hughes reporting from Nima and Mamobi. I'm sighing. I want to weep. I don't know what's on your mind. So start with you, Mohammed. What's on your mind?
Really very sad about what I've just seen. Again, when you see situations like this, three things are not working.
Tell me.
Environmental protection, not working. Institutions, not working. Policies, not working. Those three things are our biggest challenge.
10 years, the drain has been under construction.
Absolutely.
And it's been, the contract has been awarded, re-awarded close to 4 times already. Ahin, water and sanitation, you are the NGOs.
And I'm happy you have linked this, to World Water Day.
Right.
You know, you can provide people with safe water. But if their sanitation is this bad, you will not address their health, issues. And sometimes you wonder why we know what to do. We have all the policies, like he said, but they are not working. We are not implementing them. If you are able to address your sanitation, you address your health, you address your education, you address, people's ability to come out of poverty. So I find it quite difficult why we have not been able to address the issue of sanitation in this country. It's mind-boggling.
The president says in 4 years
living in this situation.
The president said in 4 years the city of Accra will be the cleanest in Africa. Do you still believe that agenda is on course? Because this is in close proximity to the Flagstaff House, to the president's private residence. And the gutter is just left with about some 10% of the thing to be completed.
Yeah, I think first and foremost,
it's been left there.
Our image as a lower middle income country is being questioned. Yeah. If you have situations like this, visible to foreigners, visible to indigents, among others. 2, if you look at the health implications of what we've just seen, it's quite serious to very poor, unsuspecting citizens. Go and fetch water in areas like that. The water is clearly polluted. They are going to begin to have health challenges, and their meager income will be spent on health costs. That's another one. The third is in terms of how we're moving as a country towards achieving this cleanest country ambition. One is financing. Government in the 2018 budget put in 183.6 million for the water and sanitation sector. Woefully inadequate. If you turn that into dollar terms, we're looking at about $42 million, when the sector needs a minimum of $500 million. That's failed. In the State of the Nation address, where the president re-echoed his dream of making Accra the cleanest city, he further allocated 200 million more Ghana cedis to deal with the sanitation challenge. If you convert that, we're looking at 43 to 45 million. Again, woefully inadequate. So in financing terms, we need to raise our game.
But we don't have the money, do we?
I think we do.
We do.
We have the money. As a lower middle income country, we're extracting minerals. In fact, annually, we're supposed to make a minimum of about $900 million in the extractive industry alone. Why can't we dedicate even, let's say 3% of that to water, sanitation, and hygiene? Will make significant progress.
Look into that camera, and maybe you want to speak to the president. He lives close by, so he can get to fix this. And then, Ahin, you have a chance to tell the president as well what you've seen and heard.
I'm very sad as a Ghanaian, to begin with. 2, as a leader in the water sector, I'm very disappointed in the institutions that we work with. And 3, I think, President, you have very good ideals. You have made very strong commitments, but I think you need to make sure that the institutions that are expected to deliver these services actually do so. And if they don't, use it as a performance measure and either make some changes or tell them that they're not the right people in the right seats.
Ian, should the sanitation minister be touched? And in doing that, will there be an ultimatum from those of you, NGOs in water and sanitation?
It's a difficult situation. You know, that ministry, right from the beginning, is set out to find difficulties. The ministry is supposed to work with other ministries to be able to achieve results. And so I will not blame the minister, but I think that there should be that intersectoral collaboration to be able to address our situation. When the president said that he wanted to make Accra the cleanest city in Africa, well, I have said that it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, by 2020.
About the Alhamdulillah, are you putting an ultimatum on it for the president? You want to tell him something?
Well, I think
or
that
the minister for sanitation?
I think that citizens will have to speak, and we have spoken, and I think that it is time for action. We cannot continue to live in a country where people are staying in situations like this.
I think the media needs to play
and that's what we're doing here on TV3.
Exactly.
I thank you very much, Mohammed Abdul Nasiru, Country Director of Water Aid. Grateful for your time and grateful. And also to you, Ata Ahin, Vice President of CONIWAS, Coalition in Water and Sanitation. We're grateful for your time this morning. And thank you also to Philip Katriku and Daniel Teteoklu for going out there with me into the thicket of those 2 slums to bring you that story. We'll be back with some more here on NewDay after this break. Happy birthday to Matthew Adote. If it's your birthday today as well, happy birthday to you. But let's go back to Kulin in the Upper West region. Brighton and Amphor was there. We showed you an earlier part of the story. Let's take the final part and have a brief conversation about it on World War Today. Take a look at this.
Indeed, a huge problem for them. Women, children, and everyone in the community relies on this kind of water from this stagnant pool. It starts from right behind me and drips here, and it gathers. I'm told that it takes hours for it to gather to the level that it can be scooped into their receptacles or containers. Residents of Kulin are really distressed. Water is a prized commodity, a challenge they are battling to deal with. They rely on this for household chores. I doubted at being told that this is indeed the water used for drinking. Then I got the shock of my life. Even children were given some to drink. They had made effort to dig a borehole, but had been unsuccessful. A last-minute effort, however, yielded some water, but resources had run out to get pumps to bring out the water. Some more funding was needed to finish the work.
We don't have money to buy the hairs and then the pipes. So the contractor told us that we should find 30 million. So we went and contacted the DCE. And the DCE too, he said that he will come. We follow him up to date. So we went to the Funsi Assemblyman. We contacted him that he should send us to MP at Accra. MP said he have called the DCE and give him the go ahead. So he called the DCE and the DCE to say that he's going to Tamale. That after he returned, that he will come.
They therefore had to continue relying on this unwholesome water for use. Several appeals in the past for help did not yield any results.
Now, water is a very, very huge problem here. Now, right now, they have to walk about 1 kilometer before they can get to the source of water. And even when they get to the source of water, they are scrambling for the water of animals. So the animals also go there to look for the same water, the same source of water, and that's where the animals also drink from.
The District Assembly is ready to step in. The promise is that Kulin's water challenge will be fixed.
They have initiated a borehole and then they hit water and reported to Assembly. So when it was reported to Assembly that they themselves have initiated a borehole and they had water, I went to the community myself, went and saw the borehole. So I asked them to actually provide details of the one who drilled the borehole, so that I will contact him to find out about the yield of the borehole, so that the Assembly will take it up and complete for them. So for now, we are ready to support them to complete the borehole for them. Once we have made several attempts and could not get water, and they themselves have now been able to drill and hit water, we are ready to take it up and complete it.
The only source they could rely on is dried up. The community lives close to the Kulin River. In October 2017, the river had water. 3 months ago, in October, I stood at this very same place, the Kulin River. This is the shores of the Kulin River. There was indeed water. Vehicles had to struggle to get to the other side. Motorbikes had to do the same. 3 months on in February, it is totally dried up. The river has been cut into pieces. Communities that lie on the banks of the river rely on it for consumption, but now they have to struggle to even get a little that's left in the river. With the river dried up and no rains expected till May, residents of Kulin would have to wait for the borehole to be fixed before they can access clean water for use. Brighton and Anfo, TV3.
Things are not the same anymore. Thanks to Brighton and Anfo for bringing this to light. I come to you for closing thoughts. Mr. Ayen, I'll start with you. Children, adults, people of all classes, this is what they have. And yet we have people talking about irrelevant issues.
You know, I always say that nothing can be more important to child well-being than access to safe water. And yet you go to these districts and invariably all the community members will mention access to safe water as their priority. And yet you find the district assembly investing in other things. Sometimes it's difficult to understand.
Right.
We have started doing some budget tracking, budget analysis of district assemblies and how much they commit to water and sanitation.
Right.
And it is serious.
What did you see?
Virtually nothing goes into it. And so they leave these to development partners and NGOs. When in fact the district assemblies can commit a lot more resources to address the issue of water and sanitation, which will benefit their people.
How can we mount pressure on those who have to deliver, Mohammed, to do this work? Common water, 21st century.
Absolutely.
Common water.
Absolutely.
Common water.
I mean, so you ask yourself, are people our priority? If your citizens are your priority, financing will not and should not be a challenge. District assemblies get annual subscription money from government.
Right.
That's a starting point. The second is that they are expected to generate resources locally, internal generated funds. And once they generate those funds, they are expected to apply the use of those resources based on their own priorities. If you prioritize water, definitely you allocate money.
Right.
So the district assembly first and foremost should be held responsible for this. So the community has done its part.
Right.
The community itself dug this facility. That is a serious and progressive community. The district assembly is the district assembly's responsibility to do this. The community has taken the initiative. The district assembly can only support that. I think the ministries should hold the sub-national level leaders accountable. If a particular district chief executive and the district coordinating director fail to deliver services as they should use as a performance measure against them. Reduce the district assembly common fund that they get, or even change their positions. That's very critical. Until people know that their failings will be used in their performance rating, they will not sit up.
I don't know, but Amma is just joining us now. Dr. Amma, welcome. Grateful that you could join us.
I'm very grateful.
These two stories, the slums in the city and the other one by Bright, Tell me, what are your thoughts about it? You're a medical doctor.
Exactly, and so I'm thinking about the health implications, and it's a big issue out there, and I think it's highly overlooked. And see, we're here talking about issues such as the U.S. military base, which is a done deal, but really, we have real issues on the ground where something as basic as water is difficult for people to get, and we'll get them drinking these, you know, filthy waters, as they were, come to the hospital, and we'll say we're working on NHIS to pay for their health, and we're happy pumping these monies into other resources to treat, whereas we could prevent by even providing the safe source of water.
You treat a lot of people in the hospitals for some of these things. Right. Are they able to afford, number one, how dangerous is it? Tell us.
Whether they're able to assess how dangerous drinking the water, even though they know how dangerous it is, that's the only source of water they have. What else are they going to rely on when that's all they've known for many years? It's become their norm, because rather, you know, and their body seems to adapt to even this kind of water, as we have with madmen. Let me use that example. Right. They eat filthy meals off the street, and it's become their norm, and so their flora is the abnormal. But when they actually turn to eat the right food, then they even come to hospitals, because now their body seems to be adapting to something new. And so it's high time we change that culture where safe water becomes the norm and the filthy sources of water are taking out.
I thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm sure that the duty bearers have heard us, and I wish that we will push, you know, a petition to them to try and get these things done. Mohammed Abdul Nasiru, Country Director of Water Aid, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. Atahin, Vice President of Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation, I'm grateful to you as well. And from Amma and I, we're Bright,
who seems to be missing. He's already, it's weekend for him.
And Solis Rose Quarter. Bright, I'm sure, is going to Kulin again to check if they've dug the borehole or they have not. But we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. Where Africa, where Ghana, be good. Happy birthday to Corporal Joseph Okonate. It's your birthday. And happy birthday to you as well, Matthew Adote. With love from all of us here. Have a great time.
Same time tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Have a blessed day.
Great.